All right, we got a really nice day and we're out here to compare the DJI Mavic Air with the Spark, okay? And the first thing I wanted to go over was just the size. I mean, this literally for the Mavic Air, this is what you need to take on a job right here. So the first thing I wanted to cover is I'm currently working with the Spark, and I had this guy in my case. I actually put him in my case in a bag. And as you can see, this just took up a little slot on my case. And I mean, it's so small, and I was just able to, you know, do my aerial work for jobs and just pull that Spark guy out of there, okay? Just so easily, just get him out. It really didn't add to any of my bulk in my equipment, and I have the controller for him right in there. And that's what I was doing previously. But as you can see, hopefully I can get a little better shot of this later, but this guy just fits in here, and I mean, it's a joke. It takes up like half the space, and that's for the Air, okay? So I'll get a shot of that, and of course I could put another divider in there to make the remote a little bit more stable in there. But the point is here, just how much more space I now have with the Mavic Air. I mean, it's just amazing. So we got a nice day. We're gonna get back here. And the main thing I want to compare for you photographers today is, of course, the image quality. I've seen a lot of videos and they're sort of comparing the video quality, but we're photographers, of course, so I'm going to get up there. We have like a complex back here that's not being lived in yet, so it's kind of perfect to show you an architectural photograph and compare the JPEGs from the Spark to the raw photos of the Mavic Air, okay? And that way you'll get an idea of what advantages you're getting when you buy this Mavic Air versus the Spark. I do think they're very capable. Both are very capable everyday real estate drones. I really think this guy, the Spark, is great for everyday real estate. I've been using it for a couple months now, and it's no problems, especially when you have sunny conditions. You just get a JPEG, just get a nice angle and a JPEG. It comes out of the camera, it's ready to deliver. So I'm not gonna knock this Spark's quality at all. But again, we wanna see how much more we can pull up the shadows with this Mavic Air. And that way, maybe it'll help somebody make the decision on going one way or the other. So just taking this guy out of the box here, there's a couple other things I wanted to talk about. And one is that the Air is going to be a little bit more stable when it comes to the connection, because the Spark actually used a Wi-Fi connection, they call it, between the controller and your device, which I have an iPad mini. And to be honest, it drops out sometimes. So for example, when you're trying to get a composition and you're rotating, the video drops out. So a lot of times I wouldn't lose the ability to control my drone with the Spark. Like, I could control it fine. I'd look up, I'd have all control I wanted, but the video feed would drop out. And that's really frustrating because you're trying to get your composition, say you're turning or rotating or whatever, and the video feed drops out. And next thing you know, you're like way over here backwards or something. So it was a real problem. And that's the thing about this Air that I think is going to be a lot better, that you're actually connected to the remote with a cable, okay? And I think that's going to be a lot more stable. Another thing to consider is also the fact that the Air has these sensors. I believe it's on the bottom, it has them. It doesn't have them on the top. It looks like it has them on the front and on the back, okay? You can see these little guys right here. And the DJI Spark, let's see, I believe it has them on the front and the bottom. And that's it, okay? Not the top or the back. So what I would advise, I mean, if you're beginning, if you're just starting out, I think these sensors would actually be worth it to buy, you know, and this is probably a little bit more, I'd say, like sophisticated in terms of being able to dodge stuff. So I think that alone might be worth the extra price to get these extra sensors on the bottom. I mean, it would always be nice if they had them on the top too, but it doesn't, right? So the point is, the Air has those sensors on the bottom, and then, oh, it has it on the back, excuse me. And I think that'll really help you if you're ever trying to get footage and you're backing up. This guy, the Air, is less prone to run into stuff, all right? And the one last thing I'll note about the Air, if you're trying to make the decision, is it's just really something you can more grow into. It has a lot more video capabilities. It has 120 frames per second, which you can do slow motion with. It has 4K, which we're gonna look at some examples of what you can do with 4K in post-production. And it's just a much better drone for like growing into for professional use. So your choice is going to kind of be, should I get this and just get the cheapest thing I can and just, you know, be making money with my aerial photographs, or should I buy something I'd grow into? And you know, if I really had to advise you, I would say if you're doing this professionally, this guy would be a better choice, because you never know what you're going to be doing. You also could, like I was saying before, you could prevent a crash if you're just starting out by having these extra sensors on the back. And I just feel like overall, just the fact that you have raw photos with this guy, I would really advise going for the Air. A lot of people might think that even the Spark isn't good enough for real estate, but I just think there's a lot of kind of pretentious, weird, I call them like the quality police. They're just really weird people out there that think that this isn't good enough for real estate. And I don't know, this is one of those topics I try not to get too like contentious about, but in my opinion, this is fine for everyday real estate, okay? So just know that if you want to get into the aerial market as cheap as you possibly can, I'd go for this guy. All right, so we're over here. Like I was saying, I'm just gonna go over this knoll right here and get a couple shots. One thing to note, that I know this looks like a great thing to launch from, but just for you guys that are starting out, you know, I'm not the most experienced at this either. There's probably some metal in this table right here. So it's just telling me, you know, compass air. So what I have to do sometimes is go ahead and walk away from that table. There's all that metal rebar in there probably. And now it's telling me it's ready to go. Okay, so I usually hand launch these. So I've gotten pretty comfortable with it, but I usually have to get down and kind of put the controller on the ground. But it's something you want to practice with, because you're not always on the ideal surface to launch. All right, so one of the things I was saying before is I'm already getting a little bit of interference with the Spark, and since we're going to be in the same exact spot, I think it'll be interesting like to see if that happens with the Air, because it's, you know, the signal is going in and out. It's never that I lose control of the drone. I never lose control of the drone, but the video signal goes in and out, and sometimes that can be caused by your phone. So I will go, maybe this isn't fair, but I'm going to go ahead and turn off my phone here. Maybe that's what the problem was. And I'm still definitely getting that little bit of interference with the Spark. So the video is jumping in and out, okay? I can still get my job done, but this is one of those things with my experience with the Spark, it takes me an extra 5-10 minutes per job, because I'm having to get my composition, and the video is not showing me what I need to see properly. So it really turns into a big hassle. So again, we're gonna go ahead and see how much better the Air is. But we'll just go ahead up here and get a quick photo. I'll try and get about in the same position with the Air. All right, so here we are back at the computer. I'm just gonna jump in here and show you a couple of the shots that we got when we were out there. And here is one of them, and then here's the other one, okay? And kind of my point in showing you this is just that, I don't know, it's sunny. And I've kind of always said this, you know, when it's sunny outside and you have a low ISO, there's not going to be much difference between equipment, and of course, you know, that's holding true between the Spark and the Air here. I just don't think there's anything worth like even worrying about between delivering these two photos to pretty much anybody. All right, so the first one was the Mavic, excuse me, that one's the Mavic, and then this one is the Spark. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump in here and I'm going to get the Mavic Air file, and I'm just going to go ahead and kind of pump up the shadows. That's really all I'm going to do, is just pump up the shadows. All right. So I'm going to get in here and just, because we have to do this a lot, right? We take these aerials and there might be something in really strong shadow, and you can see that's coming up really nicely, because these raw files, of course, the data has not been sort of rasterized yet, and it's a really lot more powerful, you know, we get to work with this engine, this raw engine, and manipulate our data in this way. So the raw files are just pretty amazing, and if you want to tweak the color, you have a lot more power there. So I'm going to go ahead and output this, And then I'm going to do my best, the same type scenario that I can with the JPEG file of the same exposure or thereabouts, and we'll see how that looks, okay, next to each other. So the way I'm going to do this, as you can see, we're starting out with quite a bit more contrast, and that's probably just part of the whole JPEG processing, the way the JPEG gets processed in the camera. But anyway, I'm going to jump in here, and I know this isn't equivalent or anything. It's sort of, this is a kind of a weird comparison because we're comparing a RAW to a JPEG. We know there's no comparison, right? So you just know to start out with that the Mavic Air is going to have a really, really strong advantage. But I'm going to go ahead and just try my best to bump up these shadows, and we'll see how well it does. Probably is not, oh, that was the highlights. Excuse me. I thought it was my processor. And there's the shadows. So we dropped down the highlights and we really boosted the shadows. I'm going to just go as much as we can, okay? And I'll go ahead and save that and we'll compare the two files. Okay, so we're going to jump on here to a photo viewer, and the Mavic Air is the one with this big sort of lump in the foreground because I couldn't get it close enough to the edge of the table. And you can see this was a backlit situation where we had the sun was out here, and this is a really tough situation. And look at that, we're able to expose for the sky to a certain extent and bring those highlights down, and we're able to pull this shadow up within the tree to a very, very reasonable extent. And I think the big comparison here is I didn't line it up perfectly, but I'm going to show you the image from the Spark now. And as you can see, it did a good job with the highlights and stuff. It looks good up here to me, but we're not able to get nearly as much. And I bet if we zoomed in there, even though it's not as bright, it would also be noisier. All right, so we're getting a double whammy with the Spark. It's really not able to pull up those dark areas, the shadows as well. And it's probably, even when we try to pull up the shadows, it's not as high a quality. Okay, so here once again, it's just a difference you're gonna be able to get in the dynamic range because you have that raw file. I'm just giving you an idea here. You know, I think a lot of times from the Air, you're really getting, your shadows are minimized from the Air a lot of times because the sun is obviously up there too. So you're not getting as many deep, dark, distracting shadows. So I just, you know, you need to take all this into consideration. I know I'm not giving you any sort of clear cut way to go here. You know, in general, I think it's worth it probably to spend the extra, what is it, $300 or so on the Mavic Air. But there's a lot of stuff I really, really like about the Spark, okay? I really, really like the fact that I can just whip it out of my bag and I don't have to deal with any of the folding or any of that stuff. That's probably my favorite thing about it. And the other thing I'd say about the Mavic Air, I mean, the really reason that I would say to go for the Mavic Air, I think it's reason enough alone, is the whole, just the video feed is so much better on the Mavic Air, and that can get really frustrating. So I would say this, if you're doing this every day, taking aerials like every day or 2 or 3 or 4 times a week doing aerials, there wouldn't be any question for me. I would get the Air, because even that whole video stability thing is enough, okay? That's definitely enough if you're doing it every day. But if you're just kind of doing aerials maybe once a week and you want to grab something cheap, I would go ahead and really think about getting the Spark. It's a great little tool. You can just get the thing out of your bag in 5 seconds, fly it up in the air. You don't even need the remote for it. You can just get a few photos from aerials, and you can charge what you want for those. And so I hope this helped you out, guys. I hope you make the right choice. I know it's a tough one, and let me know how it goes, and let me know if I maybe missed anything or whatever in the comments, and I'll see you next time. All right, bye-bye.